He was the man who owned the city, a billionaire phantom known only for his cruelty. Damien Stryker. A name whispered in fear in the hallways of his own empire. The staff at his five-star restaurant, Aura, knew the rule. When Mr. Stryker appears, you disappear. You look at the floor, you say yes, and you pray he doesn't notice you. They all obeyed. All except one. The new waitress. The one who hadn't learned to be afraid. And when she stood her ground, she didn't just break the rules. She threatened to break the man himself. Gabriel Vance hated the color beige. It was the color of her tiny, water-stained apartment walls. It was the color of the cheap instant noodles she ate most nights. And it was, agonizingly, the color of the uniform for the job she desperately needed. The uniform for Aura is bespoke, Ms. Vance, the hiring manager had said, her voice thin as a razor. It is champagne, not beige. Gabriel hadn't argued. She just clutched the heavy stock linen uniform and promised to be the best waitress they had ever seen. She had to be. The stack of medical bills for her mother's care, hidden under her mattress, was a constant, suffocating weight. Aura wasn't just a job. It was the most exclusive, highest-paying restaurant in the city, perched on the 90th floor of Stryker Tower. The tips from one night here could cover her mother's medication for a month. Her first week was a blur of brutal efficiency. She memorized the 80-page wine list. She learned the specific, near-psychotic preferences of the restaurant's clientele. She learned to balance a tray of crystal flutes while navigating a silent, carpeted war zone. The true master of this war zone was Mr. Henri Bouchard, the maitre d'. He was a tall, gaunt man who seemed to glide rather than walk, his eyes missing nothing. "Miss Vance," he hissed during a busy Friday service. "The gentleman at table 12. His water glass is at 40%. Do you intend for him to die of thirst?" "No, Mr. Bouchard," Gabriel said, already moving. She learned the most important rule on her third day. It wasn't about the wine or the water or the amuse-bouche. It was about him. The senior staff, the ones who had survived more than 6 months, called him the Phantom. Damien Stryker, the CEO, the billionaire, the owner of the entire building, including the very air they breathed. "He doesn't come in often," whispered Sarah, another waitress, while polishing silverware in the pre-dawn quiet. "Thank God. But when he does, you don't make eye contact. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't exist. He once had a busboy fired for sneezing too loudly." "That's insane," Gabriel murmured, polishing a fork until it gleamed. "It's Aura," Sarah replied grimly. "And it's his world. Last month, he came in for a surprise inspection. He found a single-ply napkin at the bar. Single-ply. He fired the night manager on the spot, just pointed at him and said, 'Get out.' Then he turned to Bouchard and said, 'Fix it,' and left." Gabriel's blood ran cold. This wasn't a job. It was a tightrope walk over a canyon of fire, and the rope was held by a madman. On Tuesday, the 7th day of Gabriel's employment, the air in the restaurant changed. It became heavy, electric, toxic. Mr. Bouchard called an emergency staff meeting at 4 p.m., his face paler than usual. "Attention," he snapped, his voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the room. "He is coming." A collective, silent gasp. A young busboy dropped a tray of glasses, and the sound was like a gunshot. Bouchard's eyes snapped to the boy. "Clean it, and you're fired." Gabriel watched in horror as the boy's face crumpled. He just nodded, tears welling, and began picking up the shards. "The rest of you," Bouchard continued, stepping over the mess. "He will be here at 8 p.m. Table 1, the Apex booth. It is, as you all know, in Ms. Vance's section." Every head turned to Gabriel. She felt like a lamb being presented for slaughter. "Sir," Gabriel said, her voice shaking but clear, "I've only been here a week. Shouldn't a more senior waitress—" Bouchard gave her a smile that was more of a sneer. "Miss Vance, you are our freshest face, and our most expendable. You will serve him. You will not spill. You will not speak. You will not breathe incorrectly. If you do not bother coming in tomorrow. In fact, do not bother going home. Simply throw yourself from the balcony. It will be quicker." He turned on his heel. "Prepare yourselves. The night is ruined." Gabriel ran to the bathroom, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was going to fail. She was going to be fired over a water glass or a sneeze. And her mother. She splashed cold water on her face, gripping the marble sink until her knuckles turned white. She looked at her reflection. The terrified beige girl staring back. No. The fear was still there, cold and sharp, but something else rose with it. Anger. A hard, defiant spark. She thought about the boy who was fired for dropping a tray. She thought about her mother, who had worked her fingers to the bone her whole life with dignity. "He's just a man," she whispered to her reflection. "A very rich, very cruel man, but just a man." She fixed her hair, straightened her champagne uniform, and walked out. She was no longer a terrified girl. She was a professional. And tonight, she would do her job. She had no idea that her job, her life, and the entire Stryker empire were about to collide in a way no one could have predicted. At 7:59 p.m., a hush fell over Aura. The clinking of cutlery, the murmur of conversation, the distant jazz trio. It all seemed to fade into a vacuum. The heavy glass doors at the entrance slid open. He didn't walk in. He entered. Damien Stryker was not what Gabriel expected. She had pictured an older, gnarled man, barking orders. The man who entered was young, perhaps 35. He was tall, dressed in a black, custom-tailored suit that looked more like armor, and he moved with the predatory grace of a panther. His face was all hard angles and cold, piercing blue eyes. He wore a Patek Philippe on his wrist, but it was his least intimidating feature. He didn't look at the staff. He didn't look at the other diners, many of whom were billionaires themselves. He simply walked toward the Apex booth, his personal assistant trailing nervously behind him. Mr. Bouchard glided forward, bowing his head. "Mr. Stryker, welcome. A pleasure to—" "Don't," Damien Stryker said. His voice was quiet, but it had the deep, gravelly texture of broken glass. "Is it ready?" "Of course, sir. Your usual. The table is perfect." Damien stopped at the table. He ran one long finger over the white linen. He inspected it for a moment, then looked at Bouchard. "Perfect?" Bouchard blanched. "Sir?" "There is a—" Damien paused. "A molecule of something. Dust? Skin? I don't care. Change the entire cloth." "Yes, Mr. Stryker. At once." Bouchard snapped his fingers, and 2 busboys scrambled, replacing the entire setting in under 30 seconds. Gabriel watched from her station, her tray held steady. He hadn't seen her yet. He was in her section. Her problem. Damien sat. His assistant handed him a tablet, and he immediately began tapping at it, his face illuminated by the blue glow. Gabriel took a deep breath, grabbed the custom-bottled Stryker-branded mineral water, chilled to exactly 4 degrees Celsius, and approached. "Good evening, sir," she said, her voice smooth and professional. "May I offer you some water?" Damien didn't look up. He just waved a dismissive hand. Gabriel poured the water. Her hand, to her eternal pride, was perfectly steady. "I'll be taking care of you this evening," she continued. "My name is Gabriel." He still didn't look up. "I don't care." The words hit her like a slap. She saw Sarah at the next station wince. "The kitchen has prepared the seared scallops with truffle essence, as you requested, sir. And Chef Pierre has a—" "Stop talking," he said, his eyes still glued to the screen. "You are distracting. The sound of your voice is thin. Get me a scotch, Lagavulin 25, and don't let the bartender ruin it." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Yes, sir." She retrieved the scotch, which cost more than her monthly rent. She placed it on the table. He finally looked up. His eyes met hers. It wasn't a glance. It was an assessment, a cold, brutal inventory. He looked at her, then at the glass. He picked it up, swirled it, and sniffed. "This is the 16, he said, his voice flat. "Sir, this," he said, pushing the glass toward her, "is the Lagavulin 16. It's smoky, peaty, and common. I asked for the 25. The 25 has notes of sherry, dried fruit, and a distinct lack of the campfire smoke you've just served me. Are you incompetent or just illiterate?" Gabriel felt the blood drain from her face, then rush back with a hot, burning anger. Bouchard was already halfway to the table, his face a mask of pure terror. "Gabriel," Bouchard hissed, "apologize to Mr. Stryker." Gabriel ignored Bouchard. She looked directly at Damien Stryker. "Sir," she said, her voice dropping to a low, cold level that matched his. "I apologize. I personally retrieved the bottle from the high-security liquor cabinet. It seems our sommelier has mislabeled the bottle he decanted this afternoon. He must have confused the 16 and the 25. This was a lie. She knew exactly what she had done. The 25 was locked by Bouchard, and he hadn't given her the key. He had set her up. Stryker's eyes narrowed. He was being challenged. "So you're blaming a ghost," he said. "How convenient. What's next? The wine list is haunted." "The wine list," Gabriel said, her training kicking in, "is one of the finest in the country. Though I must admit, I was surprised to see the 92 Screaming Eagle on page 4. It's a bold choice, but connoisseurs might say it's past its prime. Perhaps a younger, more vibrant vintage would better suit the modern palette you're curating." Silence. Utter, deafening silence. Even Damien Stryker, the man who owned the building, looked surprised. He had expected her to cry, to beg, to be fired. He had not expected a critique of his multi-million-dollar wine cellar. He leaned forward. "You're new." "A week, sir," Gabriel said. "And in that week, you've managed to become an expert on my cellar, my scotch, and apparently my modern palate. I am an expert on my job, sir, which includes knowing the product." He stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. Gabriel's heart was trying to escape her chest. This was it. She was done. Damien Stryker leaned back. A slow, cold, and utterly terrifying smile spread across his face. It didn't reach his eyes. "Bouchard!" he called out, his voice resonating through the silent dining room. Bouchard was at his side in an instant. "Yes, Mr. Stryker. Sir, I am so sorry for her." "Fire her," Damien said, picking up his tablet again. Gabriel's stomach dropped. That was it. "But first," Stryker added, not looking up, "bring me the actual Lagavulin 25, and tell Chef Pierre he can begin. Apparently, I am hungry." Bouchard looked at Damien, then at Gabriel. His face was a twisted mask of rage and relief. "You," he spat at Gabriel, grabbing her by the arm and yanking her away from the table, back toward the kitchen. "You are finished." The heavy soundproof door of the kitchen swung shut, cutting off the opulent silence of the dining room. The clatter and heat of the kitchen hit Gabriel like a physical blow. "Are you insane?" Bouchard's voice was a low, venomous hiss, his fingers digging into her arm. "Do you have a death wish? You spoke to him. You corrected him. You insulted his wine list." "He was wrong about the scotch," Gabriel said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. And you knew the 25 was locked. Silence! Bouchard shoved her against a stainless steel counter. You are a waitress, a replaceable, insignificant little girl. He is Damien Stryker. He could buy this city and turn it into his own private golf course. He asked for you to be fired, and it is the greatest pleasure of my career to oblige. He ripped the Iora-branded pin from her uniform. Get out, now. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Do not list this restaurant on your resume. As of this moment, you never worked here. The finality of it hit her. The desperation she had held at bay for a week flooded back, cold and sickening. Her mother's bills, the rent. Mr. Bouchard, please, she whispered. I need this job. Then you should have learned to grovel, he sneered. Like the rest of us. He turned and composed himself, straightening his tie, smoothing his hair, and plastering on his professional mask before pushing back through the doors to serve his master. Gabriel stood there for a moment, the heat of the ovens on her back, the noise of the kitchen fading. She was invisible. She walked to the staff lockers, her body numb. She changed out of the champagne uniform and back into her own beige clothes. She walked out the staff exit, into the cold night air and the alley that smelled of old truffle oil and failure. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just walked the 60 blocks home as the first few drops of a cold rain began to fall. She had $42.50 to her name. She had failed. She spent the next day in a fog of self-loathing and despair. She called her mother, forcing a cheerful tone, lying about a bonus and a few days off. She applied for jobs at coffee shops, diners and bars, anywhere that would hire her. No one called back. She felt the shadow of Damien Stryker's name, a black mark she couldn't erase. On Wednesday morning, her ancient flip phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize, a downtown exchange. Hello? She answered, her voice hoarse. Is this Gabriel Vance? The voice was female, crisp and professional. Yes. Who is this? My name is Genevieve. I am the executive assistant to Mr. Damien Stryker. Mr. Stryker requests your presence at the corporate headquarters of Stryker Enterprises today at 2:00 p.m. Gabriel's blood turned to ice. Requests my presence? Is he going to sue me? Is he... what? 2 p.m., Ms. Vance. The address is 1 Stryker Plaza. Do not be late. The line clicked dead. Gabriel stared at the phone. This was it. The final blow. He wasn't content with firing her. Now he was going to humiliate her, or worse, have her sign an NDA, or threaten her family. She looked at the eviction notice she'd hidden under a magnet. She looked at her mother's photo. I have nothing left to lose, she muttered. She put on the only decent blazer she owned, a threadbare black one from a thrift store, and took the subway to the most powerful address in the city. Stryker Enterprises was not a building. It was a monument to power. A sheer black glass sphere piercing the clouds. The lobby was a cathedral of Italian marble and silent, intimidating art. Gabriel Vance for Mr. Stryker, she told the receptionist, who looked like a supermodel carved from ice. The receptionist's eyes flickered, unimpressed by Gabriel's blazer. One moment, she typed, and her eyes widened just a fraction. Oh, you're Ms. Vance. Mr. Stryker is waiting. 100th floor, private elevator. The elevator moved so fast and so silently, her ears popped. The doors opened directly into a sprawling office that seemed to occupy the entire floor. The walls were glass, offering a 360-degree view of the city below. And there, standing in the center, silhouetted against the blinding afternoon sun, was Damien Stryker. He was not in a suit. He was in casual dark trousers and a simple grey cashmere sweater. He looked almost human. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice the same gravelly rumble. He didn't turn around. "You're 2 minutes early. I detest early people. It's a sign of unstructured desperation." "And I detest being summoned like a criminal," Gabriel shot back, her anger and fear battling for control. "You had me fired. What more do you want?" He turned. His blue eyes were just as cold in the daylight. "Fired?" "Yes. Bouchard. A sycophant. A weasel. A man who, for 10 years, has told me yes so many times I've begun to forget what no sounds like." He walked closer. "Until you—" I don't understand," Gabriel stammered. "Bouchard is gone," Damien said, as if discussing the weather. "I fired him an hour after you left. His pension is forfeit. He will be lucky to manage a fast food restaurant in Ohio." Gabriel's mind reeled. You fired him. But you told him to fire me." "I did," Stryker agreed, a flicker of that cold smile playing on his lips. It was a test, to see if he'd do it, to see if he had even an ounce of loyalty to his staff. He failed, as I knew he would. He stopped just a few feet from her. "You, however, you did not." Gabriel stood in the cavernous office, the entire city sprawling beneath her feet like a map, and felt a profound, dizzying sense of vertigo. "A test," she repeated, her voice laced with disbelief and a residual simmering anger. "You destroyed a man's career, and almost mine, as a test." "I destroy careers every day before breakfast, Miss Vane. It's part of the job description," Damien said, turning to a sleek, black espresso machine. "Bouchard was a symptom of a larger disease, a disease you pointed out." "What disease?" "Syndrome of the yes man, the SYM," he said, the machine hissing. "My wine cellar is dated. My staff is terrified. My scotch was the 16. For 5 years, no one has told me the truth about anything. They're all so terrified of the rude billionaire CEO myth that they perpetuate it. They pad the numbers. They hide the problems. They smile and nod and tell me I'm a genius, while my own hospitality division bleeds money from inefficiency." He turned, holding a tiny porcelain cup. You were new. You were scared. I could see your hand trembling when you put down the Scotch glass. But you still spoke. You chose facts over fear. Why? Gabriel thought of her mother, of the eviction notice. "I don't know," she said, choosing her words carefully. "I guess I'd rather be fired for being right than keep a job for being a liar." A strange sound rumbled in Damien's chest. It took Gabriel a moment to identify it as a laugh, though it was cold and unused. "Honesty is a luxury of the desperate," he mused. "I like that. It's authentic." He sat behind a desk that was a single, enormous slab of petrified wood. "I had Genevieve run a background check on you. Gabriel Vance, 4.0 GPA, City College, art history major, dropped out 2 years ago. Mother, stage 3, medical debt, extensive. You're brilliant, overeducated, and working a dead-end job. You're exactly what I'm looking for." "Looking for? For what? A new waitress?" "God, no," he scoffed. "I'm offering you a job, a real one." He spun a tablet on his desk so it faced her. It showed an organizational chart. "This is Stryker Hospitality. Hotels, restaurants, clubs, all over the world. They are all, to varying degrees, failing. Not financially, but in substance. They're run by men like Bouchard. I want you to fix them." "Fix them? I'm a waitress. You're an observer. You have no fear. And as of this moment, you have my complete authority. I'm creating a new position. Executive Auditor, Hospitality Division. You will report only to me. You will travel. You will go in, incognito, as a guest, as a new hire, as yourself. You will find the problems. You will find the bouchards. And you will tell me the truth. No varnish. No fear. He named a salary. It was a number so large, Gabriel felt her knees buckle. It was 6 figures. It was life-changing. It was her mother's medical bills, gone. It was a new apartment. It was a future. "Why me?" she whispered, the one question that still burned. "Because," Damien said, his eyes locking onto hers, "everyone I know is bought. Everyone has an angle. You're a blank slate, and you're not impressed by me. That makes you the most valuable person in this building." "I accept," Gabriel said, the words coming out before she could second-guess them. "But I have 2 conditions." Damien Stryker raised an eyebrow. No one gave him conditions. "First," Gabriel said, standing straighter, "the busboy you fired, the one who dropped the glasses. You will rehire him, with back pay and a raise." He was scared, not incompetent. Damien stared at her, then nodded. "Done." "Second, I report to you, and only to you. No one in the chain of command. No one else sees my reports until I say they are ready." "That was already the offer, Ms. Vance," he said, a flicker of respect in his cold eyes. "Welcome to Stryker Enterprises. You start Monday. Genevieve will arrange your life." As Gabriel turned to leave, her head spinning, he spoke one last time. "And Ms. Vance?" "Yes, Mr. Stryker. Buy a new blazer. Use the company card." The first 3 months were a whirlwind. Gabriel Vance, the waitress, vanished. In her place, E. Vance, executive auditor, emerged. She was flown first class to Stryker hotels in London, Paris, and Dubai. She arrived at each location unannounced, with a blank slate and a critical eye. In London, she checked in as a tourist and discovered the night shift concierge was running a side hustle, selling upgraded rooms for cash. In Paris, she worked for a week as a maid and uncovered a massive supply theft ring in the laundry. Her reports, sent directly to Damien's private server, were not data-filled spreadsheets. They were stories. They were profiles of the staff, analyses of the morale, and brutally honest assessments of the management. Damien, he had insisted she use his first name, though it felt like swallowing rocks. The head chef at Le Ciel is a genius, but he's a tyrant. The staff turnover is 80%. We are losing talent because he throws plates. He needs anger management, or he needs to be gone. Your choice. To her shock, he listened. The chef was sent on a mandatory sabbatical. The concierge was fired. The theft ring was busted. With every change, the division's performance improved. Her meetings with Damien were brief, efficient, and held via secure video call. He remained as distant and cold as ever, but his words held a new weight. "Good work in Dubai, Gabriel. The lost revenue from the spa just magically reappeared." "They just needed someone to look," she'd reply. "No," he said, his eyes intense on the screen. "They just needed someone to see." But Gabriel's meteoric rise and her unprecedented access to Stryker himself did not go unnoticed. A new shadow was beginning to fall, and it came from within the 100th floor. Julian Thorne, Executive Vice President of Acquisitions. He was everything Gabriel was not: old money, impeccably connected, and a master of corporate politics. He had been Damien's right-hand man for a decade, the heir apparent should Stryker ever step down. Julian saw Gabriel as a threat, a pet project, a distraction. He hated her direct line to Damien. He hated her autonomy, and most of all, he hated that she was succeeding. For months, Julian had been running a parallel operation. While Damien was focused on fixing his hospitality division, Julian was using the acquisitions department as his personal piggy bank. He would identify properties to acquire, inflate their value on paper, and take a massive kickback from the seller, funneling the money into a Series F of shell corporations and ultimately to a private numbered account at a Geneva bank. Gabriel, in her audits, was starting to get close. She wasn't looking for financial fraud on that scale, but she kept noticing discrepancies. "Damien," she said in a call, frowning at her screen, "the new hotel in Milan. The numbers don't add up. We paid 40% over market value. The seller was a brand new LLC, founded just 3 days before the sale. It feels wrong." Damien's face on the screen hardened. "Who signed off on that acquisition?" "Julian Thorne." A silence stretched between them. "Send me everything you have, Gabriel. Everything. And don't say a word to anyone." But Julian Thorne was not a man who waited to be attacked. He had been monitoring Gabriel. He had been monitoring Damien. He knew she was getting close, and he had an ace up his sleeve. He made a phone call to a bitter, unemployed man living in a rundown apartment in Ohio, a man who dreamed of revenge. "Mr. Bouchard," Julian said, his voice smooth as silk. "How would you like your old life back? And then some. I have a small, theatrical performance in mind. And you, my friend, are my star." Julian knew he couldn't just frame Gabriel. Damien would never believe it. He had to make Damien want to believe it. He had to create a narrative of betrayal, so personal, so deep, that Damien's infamous temper would do the rest. He put his plan into motion. He would use Gabriel's own diligence against her. He would let her find the fraud. He would let her gather the evidence. And then, at the last second, he would flip the entire narrative and make her the mastermind. He just needed the perfect moment to spring the trap. The digital clock on her laptop read 3:17 a.m. Gabriel had been back from Milan for less than 12 hours, and she hadn't slept. Her apartment, once a beige prison, now felt like a command center. Her dining table was invisible under a sea of financial printouts, hotel blueprints, and encrypted hard drives. And then she found it. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was a single line of code in a deleted server log from a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. A routing number. It was the key that unlocked the entire labyrinth. She cross-referenced it with the Milan acquisition, and the numbers finally stopped lying. The 40% overpayment on the hotel hadn't just vanished. It had been funneled, washed, and rerouted, finally landing in a high-security, numbered account at a private Geneva bank. An account that, with 3 more hours of frantic, caffeine-fueled digging, she traced not to a faceless entity, but to a holding company. A holding company owned by Julian Thorne. She had him. She had all of it. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a dizzying, terrifying surge of adrenaline and pride. She wasn't just saving the company. She was saving Damien. She was proving that his insane, inexplicable trust in her had been the single smartest decision he'd ever made. She pulled up their secure, end-to-end encrypted chat. "Gabriel, I found it. It's Julian. It's all been Julian. I have the proof, the wire transfers, the Geneva account, everything. We need to meet. Now." She hit send, her heart hammering. The read receipt appeared instantly. For a full, agonizing minute, there was no reply. And then, "Damien, my office, 1 hour." Gabriel let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. She looked at her reflection in the dark window, a disheveled woman with wild eyes and a coffee-stained t-shirt. She showered in 3 minutes, pulled on the simple, powerful black sheath dress she'd bought with her first paycheck, and tied her hair back. She was no longer a waitress. She was an auditor. And today, she was an executioner. She arrived on the 100th floor at 4:50 a.m. The sky outside the glass walls was a deep, bruised purple, the city lights still glittering below. Genevieve was at her desk, which was unusual for this hour. The assistant's face was pale and tight, her eyes darting to Gabriel with an expression she couldn't quite read. It looked almost like pity. "He's waiting for you, Miss Vance," Genevieve said, her voice a strained whisper. The doors to Damien's office were ajar. Gabriel pushed them open, her encrypted hard drive clutched in her hand like a weapon. "Damien, I have it. I have—" She stopped. The words died in her throat. He wasn't alone. Damien Stryker was at his desk, but he wasn't sitting. He was standing, rigid, silhouetted against the slowly lightening sky. His face was a mask of Arctic cold. In the chairs opposite his desk sat two men. One was Julian Thorne, his face a perfect picture of grave concern and deep disappointment. The other was Mr. Henri Bouchard. Gabriel's blood turned to ice. "Damien, what is this? What is he doing here?" "Miss Vance, Gabriel." Damien's voice was not the gravelly rumble she knew. It was a flat, dead, sterile thing. "Your timing is impeccable. We were just discussing your remarkable performance." "My performance?" Gabriel's eyes darted to Julian. "Gabriel," Julian said, his voice a silken, sorrowful baritone. I'm so sorry it's come to this. I truly am. I tried to warn Damien that you were too much, too soon. But I never imagined this." "Imagined what?" Gabriel snapped, her confusion turning to a cold, rising dread. "She's lying," Bouchard suddenly shrieked, his voice cracking. He sprang from his chair, his face a blotchy, tear-stained mess. "She came to me, Mr. Stryker, after you, after I was let go. She said she'd ruin me. She said she knew things. She said I could either be her inside man, or she'd make sure I never worked in this city again." "What?" Gabriel reeled back as if struck. "That's insane. Damien, he's lying. This is the man you fired for cause." "A cause you gave me, Gabriel," Damien said, his voice cutting into her. "How convenient." "Please," Julian said, standing and placing a reassuring hand on Bouchard's shaking shoulder. Let's just lay it all out. It's cleaner this way." He walked to the massive wall screen and tapped a remote. A file appeared. It was an organizational chart, but not one Gabriel had ever seen. "This, Damien, is Gabriel's real project," Julian explained, his voice that of a patient teacher. "For 3 months, she hasn't been auditing. She's been recruiting. Mr. Bouchard was just the first. She's been identifying disgruntled employees, concierges, chefs, hotel managers, and creating a shadow network, a network designed for one purpose." He clicked. A new screen appeared. "Bank statements." "Siphoning," Julian said. "It's actually brilliant." She used her art history degree. She'd go into a hotel, flag a multi-million-dollar piece of art in the lobby as a cheap reproduction, and use her authority, the authority you gave her, to have it replaced. I was saving the company money," Gabriel protested, her mind racing. "I was finding legitimate pieces at auction to replace forgeries." "Were you?" Julian smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Or were you purchasing these new pieces from a very exclusive, very private gallery? A gallery that you yourself owned through a shell corporation." He clicked again. A wire transfer. "You were buying your own paintings, Gabriel, with Stryker money, at a 1,000% markup." No, that's not true. And when I started getting close to the Milan deal," Julian continued, his voice hardening, "you panicking. You knew I'd find the discrepancies. So you decided to do what all cornered animals do. You decided to attack. You decided to frame me." I decided? Gabriel laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. I have the proof, right here. She held up the hard drive. It's you, Julian. The Geneva account, the routing number. It's all you. The Geneva account, Damien repeated, his voice dangerously soft. He finally moved, walking from behind his desk. He took the hard drive from her numb fingers. Yes, we've been reviewing your report. He gestured to the screen, and Gabriel's world fell apart. It was her report, her files, her analysis, but it was twisted, horrifyingly wrong. Her analysis of the Milan deal was there, but it was recontextualized as a proposal. It looked like she was the one who had identified the crooked seller, she was the one who had pushed the 40% overpayment, and she was the one who had approved the final transfer. And then, the final image, the wire transfer to the Geneva bank. The account holder name, clear as day, E. Vance Holdings, LLC. I don't have an LLC, Gabriel whispered, the air leaving her lungs. That's not me. That's been faked. It's photoshopped. We thought of that, Julian said, almost gently. You're a brilliant girl, Gabriel, but you're not a hacker. This is high-level digital forgery. We pulled the server logs from the bank in Geneva. The transfers, the account creation, it all originated from a single encrypted IP address. He clicked. A map of the world appeared on the screen, a single red dot pulsing over Italy. The Hotel Striker, Milan, Julian said, his voice filled with theatrical regret. Your suite, your laptop, your private encrypted key login. It's a digital fortress, Gabriel. A fortress that only you had the key to. The IT technician, the friendly man, the Wi-Fi problem, her laptop. He'd had her laptop for an hour. My laptop, she breathed, horrified. In Milan, a man, he cloned my hard drive. He must have, oh, Gabriel, Julian sighed, shaking his head. Now a mysterious man in Milan? It's just sad. You get caught. And this is your story? Gabriel ignored him. She ignored Bouchard, who was now weeping into a silk handkerchief. She turned and walked right to Damien, stopping inches from him. She planted her feet. Damien, look at me. He did. His blue eyes were not cold, not anymore. They were filled with a dark, swirling, burning pain. The pain of a man watching his last hope burn to the ground. You know me, she said, her voice low, shaking but fierce. You hired me because I tell the truth. You hired me because I wasn't afraid of you. I am not lying. This is him. She jabbed a finger at Julian. He is the snake. He is the one who has been bleeding you dry for years. He is using me. He is using your faith in me, the one good thing you did, as a weapon against you. He is smart. He is a master at this. But he is lying. He stared at her, searching her face. She could see the war behind his eyes, the desire to believe her, warring with the mountain of perfect evidence. I trusted you, he finally whispered, and the words broke her heart. I know, she whispered back, and I never betrayed that. You have to believe me. I brought you in, he continued, his voice a rasp, as if speaking to himself. I gave you my confidence, a thing I give to no one. I thought you were different. I thought you were the one authentic thing in this entire tower of glass. He turned away from her, a move that was more violent than a slap. But the evidence, he said, his voice hardening, is overwhelming. You used your degree. You used Bouchard's anger. You used your access. And you used me. He looked at his desk phone. He didn't press the intercom. He lifted the heavy, old-fashioned receiver, a deliberate, final act. Genevieve, he said, his voice dead. Send in security, and call Chief Harrison at the 17th Precinct. Tell him, we have a situation. Grand larceny. Embezzlement. Julian stepped forward, placing a hand on Damien's shoulder. Damien, I'm so sorry. I know this is hard. This betrayal. I'll handle the transition. I'll take care of everything. The doors opened. The two lobby security guards, men who had called her Ms. Vance and smiled at her for 3 months, entered. Their faces were impassive. Ms. Vance, you'll need to come with us. They took her arms. The touch was firm, professional. And in that moment, Gabriel's terror vanished, replaced by a sudden, white-hot, clarifying rage. She didn't struggle. She didn't look at Julian. She didn't look at Bouchard. She looked at Damien. He winked Damien. Damien, who had his back to her, froze. What? He said, without turning. When I first walked in, Gabriel said, her voice clear and carrying, you were looking at me. You didn't see it. Julian, he looked at Bouchard, and he winked. A little, we got her signal. A little good job, actor, pat on the back. You're being played. She's delusional, Julian snapped, his voice a fraction too high. Get her out of here. The guards began to pull. Gabriel dug her heels in for one last second. You're not a rude billionaire, Damien, she yelled, her voice echoing in the vast, silent office. You're just a fool, a blind fool who trusts the snake in his garden just because it's been there the longest. He flinched. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible motion, a tightening of his shoulders, a sharp intake of breath. The insult, the raw truth of her accusation had hit him harder than any plea for mercy ever could. The guards dragged her out, past Genevieve's stricken, horrified face. Past the Ice Queen receptionist, who was openly staring, the elevator doors slid shut, and Gabriel stood between two silent men, her entire world in ashes. But she had planted a seed of doubt. He winked. In a war of perfect lies, it was the only clumsy, human truth she had left. She had to pray it was enough. Gabriel was not taken to a police station. She was taken to a holding room. A small, windowless, but luxurious conference room on the 50th floor. The guards stood outside the door. She was alone. Hours passed. She paced. She thought. She replayed every conversation, every file. How? How had Julian faked her IP address? How had he gotten her digital signature? The hotel in Milan. She had been having trouble with the Wi-Fi. A hotel IT technician had come to her room, a very helpful, friendly man. He had fixed her laptop. He had cloned her hard drive. It was a plant. Julian's reach was longer than she'd thought. He hadn't just framed her. He had been planning this for months. She knew Damien. He was ruthless, but he wasn't stupid. He had called the police, but he hadn't had her arrested. Not yet. He had sequestered her. Why? He was testing her. Again, or he was testing himself. He was giving himself time. The door opened. It was not security. It was Damien. Alone. He looked exhausted. His tie was loosened. His hair was disheveled. They're gone, he said, his voice flat. Julian is on his way to the Striker Victory Gala to celebrate. Bouchard is probably on a flight to a non-extradition country, courtesy of Julian. So you're letting them get away? Gabriel said, her voice hard. Sit down, he ordered. I'll stand. He nodded, expecting it. The digital signature on the wire transfers. It was perfect. The IP logs were clean. The server-side evidence was flawless. Julian must have had a master hacker. And you believed it, she said. It wasn't a question. It was a condemnation. Yes, he said. For a moment, I believed it, because it's what everyone does. They get close, they see the money, and they turn. It's the only story I know." "Then you're a very poor reader," Gabriel snapped. He ignored the jibe. "But the evidence was too perfect. The confession from Bouchard. It was rehearsed. And then there was you." "Me?" "You called me a blind fool," he said, a small pained smile touching his lips. "When I fired you at Aura, you called me Sir. When I had you arrested, you insulted me. You're not afraid of me. You're disappointed. That's new." He stepped closer. "So I stalled. I put you here, and I did what I should have done in the first place. I didn't look at the data. I looked at the people." He tossed a small, black USB drive onto the conference table. "What's this?" Gabriel asked. "While you were auditing hotels, I was auditing you. It's the full audio-video feed from my office. My security is extensive. Julian and Bouchard arrived 20 minutes before you. They thought they were warning me." He pressed a button on the wall-mounted screen. The video flickered to life. It was Damien's office, from a discreet angle. Julian and Bouchard were there. Video Julian. "Damien, I don't know how to tell you this, but she's been playing you. Her and Bouchard. It's a massive conspiracy." Video Bouchard. She's a monster, Mr. Stryker. She forced me." Then the audio cut out for 3 seconds, but the video remained. Gabriel watched as Julian, believing the audio was dead, turned to Bouchard and winked. He straightened Bouchard's tie and gave him a smug, congratulatory pat on the shoulder. Gabriel gasped. He was coaching him, the whole time." "The audio glitch was me," Damien said. "A silent test. Julian thought he was safe. He was arrogant. He dropped the mask. He winked." Damien turned to her. "The evidence against you was a mountain, Gabriel. But the evidence against him was a single, arrogant blink of an eye. And I'll take human nature over faked data any day. So, what now?" Gabriel asked, her heart hammering. "Now," Damien said. "We're late for a party." The Stryker Victory Gala was the social event of the season. Hundreds of the city's elite were gathered in the grand ballroom of the flagship Stryker Hotel. Julian Thorne was on stage, accepting an award for Executive of the Year. "And I'd like to thank the man who made it all possible," Julian was saying, his voice smooth and practiced. "A man of vision, a man of integrity, Mr. Damien Stryker." The crowd applauded. Julian raised his glass. "Thank you, Julian," said Damien's voice. It echoed through the ballroom, but he wasn't on stage. He was at the back, standing by the main entrance. That was quite a performance. The music stopped. A spotlight found Damien, and standing next to him, looking radiant in a simple, elegant black dress, which Genevieve had provided in the holding room, was Gabriel Vance. Julian's face went white. He could see Mr. Bouchard, who was supposed to be on a plane, standing between 2 of Damien's guards at the side of the stage. "And now," Damien said, walking toward the stage, "I have a new performance I'd like to share. A little behind-the-scenes footage." The massive screen behind Julian, which had been showing a montage of his achievements, flickered. It was replaced by the security feed from Damien's office. The crowd watched, confused, as Julian and Bouchard entered. They heard Julian's warning, and then they saw the wink, the smug pat, the mask drop. The ballroom was silent. "As you can see," Damien said, taking the microphone from a frozen Julian, "Mr. Thorne is a dedicated mentor. He was just coaching Mr. Bouchard on his lines." He turned to Gabriel. "And this is Gabriel Vance. She is the woman who, in 3 months, has done what no one else could. She has saved this company, Not from outside forces, but from inside. She uncovered a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme run by Mr. Thorne, and he was this close to convincing me she was the one responsible. He pointed to Julian. The police are waiting for you downstairs, and for your IT guy in Milan, and for the seller of that property. You see, Gabriel didn't just find the fraud. She gave me a map, and I just followed it home. Julian lunged, not for Damien, but for the exit. He was, of course, intercepted. As he was dragged off stage, he locked eyes with Gabriel. She didn't look angry. She didn't look triumphant. She just looked sorry. Damien Stryker, for the first time in his public life, looked at the crowd. "There will be changes," he said. "The rude billionaire is a tiresome story. From now on, Stryker Enterprises will be known for two things: honesty and Gabriel Vance, who, as of tonight, is the new president of the Stryker Hospitality Division." He turned and held out his hand to her. The ballroom erupted in stunned applause. Later that night, the party was over. The ballroom was empty, save for two people. Damien and Gabriel stood on the terrace, overlooking the city. "President," she said, "that's a hell of a raise. It's a hell of a job. You can't just audit anymore. You have to lead. I'll need to rehire some people. That bus boy, for starters. He's going to be my new head of training." Damien laughed. A real one this time. "Done." They stood in silence for a moment. "You know," he said, turning to her, "that first night, at Aura, you weren't just right about the wine or the scotch. You were right about me. I was a dated vintage. Past my prime, hiding behind a reputation. And now?" she asked. He stepped closer. The air between them was electric, just as it had been that first night. But the fear was gone, replaced by something else. "And now," he said, his voice a low gravel, "I'm still a billionaire. I'm still difficult. But I'm not rude. Not with you." "Good," Gabriel said, a small smile playing on her lips. "Because I'm not a waitress anymore. And my standards, Mr. Stryker, are even higher." "I have no doubt," he said, his eyes, for the first time, not cold, but burning. "And I plan to spend the rest of my life trying to meet them." The new waitress didn't just get the rude billionaire's attention. She got his respect, his trust, and his company. Gabriel and Damien proved that honesty is stronger than power, and that sometimes the only person who can save you is the one person brave enough to tell you you're wrong. The staff at Stryker Enterprises no longer whispered in fear. They bustled with energy, all thanks to the woman who stood her ground. What did you think of Gabriel's story? Do you believe one person's courage can really change an entire corporate empire? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of drama, revenge, and ultimate justice, please make sure to like this video and share it with a friend who loves a good comeback story. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another tale from our channel. Thank you for listening.